Hi, PSATA. This is Ruth from the Women's Resource Center. I'm excited to bring you your Lesson 3 review. Thanks so much, first of all, for being a part of Penn State Athletes Take Action. Whether you're a veteran or maybe whether this is the first time in the classroom, I just want to thank you for being a part. Everything that you do and every moment you spend with the young people in the 6th grades in our community really makes a big difference. So let's take a look at our next lesson as we continue to build on what we've learned and as we continue to work to end youth violence here and now. Just a reminder, with PSATA, everything that we do is framed by one key equation. This is the key equation for violence prevention. And as we have talked about over and over, bullying is youth violence. So just as a reminder, here's the equation. Awareness plus action equals change. Not only do we need to increase our awareness about the dangers of bullying, but we also need to take action. We need to take action by learning and practicing skills that can help us promote pro-social behavior, respect, care, and all of the important things that are a part of building healthy relationships. When we do that, we can change the cycles of violence. We can get ahead of them, and we can learn new patterns and create a different way. That's what PSATA is all about. That's what you all are helping to embody as you're with kids in the classroom, and that's what we're going to continue to build on here in Lesson 3. Remember, a quick review. So far, we've talked about in Lesson 1 how our words and our actions can create an impact. And we used the help of Wrinkled Robin to help bring that to light. And remember, in Lesson 2, we learned about power. You talked with the young people about how power can affect our choices and our actions, especially in social situations. And you all had some fun with the school status card activity, and you also wrote and shared your bio poems that helped everyone really think about how knowing your own power can help you be your most powerful self. And when we can do that, we can support others in being their most powerful selves as well. So today, for Lesson 3, you're going to focus in on another important key for preventing violence as we continue to build on these key equations. The key that we want to focus in today that's going to help continue to build is empathy. Empathy is actually one of the key preventative factors when it comes to preventing violence. And one of the major risk factors is empathy deficits. So empathy is what we are going to talk about today, and actually that's at the center of everything that we do with PSATA. So what is empathy? As many of us all know, empathy is all about putting yourself in another person's shoes. And it's actually also about being willing to see that even though you may have differences, we don't have to treat others badly or make them feel like they're less. So empathy, when we talk about it, not only is it important to put yourself in a person's shoes, but there's also, for it to actually be empathy, we have to respond. We have to respond in ways that communicate respect and care. We don't always have to have the same beliefs. We don't always have to come from the same places. But it's important that when we are with others, that we respect them for who they are. So here's the definition that we want to talk about. The first part of empathy is valuing another person's perspective. So not only are you putting yourself in their shoes, but most importantly, you are valuing them enough as a person to take a look at their perspective and to hear it through their eyes, through their lips, and through their truth. And then the second part of empathy is responding. responding, not trying to fix or sympathize with, but responding with respect and care. So empathy is valuing another person and their perspective and responding with respect and care. So why is this important? Check it out. Okay, so I have a flash quiz for you. We've talked about the definition of bullying, the types of bullying, the types that are most prevalent, especially for middle schoolers. So here's the next thing I want to ask you. Here's a flash quiz. What is the number one reason that bullying happens? What's the number one reason a person is targeted for bullying behavior, even in our own school district? Take a second to think about it. The number one reason. Here's what it is. It's this. Different. Bullying happens because a person, more often than not, is labeled different. And young people who are perceived as different from their peers, they're often at risk for being bullied. Here's the deal. I'm not just talking about different or differences that have to do with what people do or with what people like. I'm also talking about differences that have to do with who people are. Things like your gender, whether you're a person of color, people who identify as LGBTQ, people whose body image doesn't fit the ideal, people whose families don't make as much money as other families, and people who have a disability are all way more likely to be bullied by others. When we label others as different, oftentimes we also label them as less. Check out this goofy graph. I think it kind of makes sense. Bullying happens when we target others for being different, or when we stay silent when others are labeled different, instead of making an effort to connect. Here's the deal. We've all seen it, we've all known it, and maybe we've also been a part of it. It's one thing to connect with others when they're in our circle or when they're like us. We see this in middle school a lot. People are very willing to stick up for their friends. But what happens when it's not their friends? What happens when it's someone outside of their own group? It's one thing to connect with people who are the same, but what about when they're different from us in some way? Do we label them as what? This is what happens. Oftentimes we label them as other, as different, as problem, as bad, as enemy. And what we want to do with PSATA and with this lesson is to ask a question. Do we see other people as different? Do we see other people as different and as less first? Or do we see people who are different from us, first and foremost, as this, as a person just like us? This is the key. This is what empathy can help us to do. Empathy helps us not to create a disconnect, but to create an option and a way, and it's a willingness to connect, to see another person as a person first. And we know, just like I said before, bullying happens when we target others for being different, or when we stay silent, instead of making an effort to connect. So in Lesson 3, we're going to take a look at how we can break that pattern and that cycle with empathy. In Lesson 3, you're going to take some time to do some activities to get you and the young people that you're with to think about differences and how we can all do our part to respect those differences and connect. Not only can this help us build healthier relationships with others, but it can also affect the environments that we're a part of. So take a look here. For today, here's the next part of our key equation. Our awareness word is empathy, and our action word is connect. In Lesson 3, you and your students will learn about the importance of empathy in diverse relationships and practice connecting. Let's take a look at each piece and part and see what, hopefully, it'll look like in the classroom. First of all, especially if you're new to the PSATA classroom, you might be asking yourself, well, wait a second, I've signed up to do this and I think it's really important to help kids treat each other well and communicate and talk to each other and prevent bullying, but what am I going to do and how do I do it and what do I need? So, just a reminder, there are a number of materials and everything will be provided for you. For this lesson, specifically, everyone will get a lesson plan. This lesson plan is basically just a guide. It's not a script. You don't have to worry about reading it word for word. You don't have to worry about saying every word or getting the transitions or whatever else it is. This is just a guide for you to use, especially if you're in front of everybody and you forget what you're going to say. That happens to me all the time. So really, this is just a guide for you to help you remember where you are and where you're going, and if you forget what you're saying, you can look to it for help. So everyone will get a copy of the lesson plan. It'll actually be sent ahead of time, and I'll also have extra copies for you the day of, either Tuesday or Wednesday. You will also be provided every classroom will have enough of the Your Story, Our Story worksheets. And just a heads up, at Park Forest, I will have those with you and for you, and you'll take them into the classrooms with you to hand out. At Mount Nittany, however, this material and this worksheet will be in the classrooms waiting for you. So when you get to this part, don't hesitate at Mount Nittany to ask the classroom teacher there if they have the copies of the worksheet that you were hoping to use. It'll be there for you and ready to go. The other materials that you'll have, I will provide a copy of the classroom agreements. Each classroom will have their own. You can use this either as a review or to reference it as necessary. Every classroom will also get their own signs for the me and we activity, so those will be provided. And you will also each get for your classrooms a talking piece. You might get one of the orange balls, or some classrooms have their own talking pieces, whether it's a koosh ball or a tennis ball or even a fluffy hedgehog. All of those things will either be in a bag for you, provided by me, or there with the teachers already. So don't hesitate to ask the classroom teacher who is there if you are missing something or if you need some help. They're there to help support you, because at the end of the day, they know and we know that you all aren't educators and you aren't expected to be educators. You're just there because you're bringing your presence, your words, and your care. And you're there to help the kids be heard and also hear important messages as well. So that's what you'll need for each lesson. Let's take a look then at the 4 different parts of the lesson and start to break down what you'll be doing. Each lesson, and especially lesson 3, actually looks like the format of all of the lessons that you will be doing for PSATA. 4 parts. These are your 4 key parts. The first is your circle up. You'll have a large group activity. You'll do an individual activity and have the chance to bring them into pairs. And then you'll bring it all together for the closing huddle and the hands-in cheer. So for this particular lesson, the circle up will be about 5 minutes. You'll do your athlete intros, who you are, why you're a part of PSATA. You'll start with an icebreaker question, and you'll review your agreements if necessary. The large group activity, keep your eye on the clock, probably right around 10 minutes is what you want to aim for this one. This one's called the me and we activity. It's a variation on the classic 4 corners activity, and it's really all about understanding difference and similarities and how that can affect how we treat each other. The third part, that green section there, that's the individual activity. You're going to break it down and get real with the students, and we have a worksheet provided for you. It's called Your Story, Our Story, where you're going to take some time to write and share about very real experiences of bullying. And take a look at how that influenced individuals, what it felt like, and also how it affected the environments you were a part of. And at the end, you'll bring it all together with a favorite activity in the classrooms called Linked, where you'll practice connecting in a very embodied way, and then you'll send everybody out with a cheer. So let's break these down. Let's take a look at some specific details and maybe offer some tips along the way too. Alright, so the first section is the circle up. This is right around 5 minutes or so. Keep your eye on the clock. And just a reminder, if this is your first time doing PSATA, you're in the classrooms with the students for about 40 minutes. You'll have between 24 and 26 students, and the classroom teachers and any paraprofessionals will be in there with you as well. So once you enter into the classroom, right after announcements, you'll want to get the young people together. One of the great things about Mount Nittany is that they're really used to working in circles, so we would definitely encourage you to get your classroom together in a circle if they haven't already gathered as such. Park Forest, you'll see over there on the right, oftentimes their classrooms are set up a little bit differently, and not every class is used to being in a circle. So don't hesitate, if it works for your space and your kids, to get them together and sit together on the floor, either in a circle or a way that everybody can kind of be a part of the community and be a part of what you're saying. So once you gather everyone together, you'll want to really just start to set the space. At the end of the day, this is a team building activity, and you're new to them, or if you've been there a couple times, you started to build a rapport. So this is a great way that you can start to break the ice and move in to the main content of what you'll be talking about together. Just in case it's important, and you'll know your kids and if it works best, but there will be a copy of the classroom agreements in case you need to review with them what's expected and what they can expect of each other. Bottom line, the goal of PSATA is to help everyone know and remember that we're one team and we support each other. So respect is a requirement, and practicing that is a requirement. And we're always aspiring to be our best selves, whatever that looks like. So don't hesitate to review the agreements with them. Remind them that we use put-ups and not put-downs. And at any point, you can always reference these and remind the young people, hey you guys, remember, it's important that we practice respect and that we listen with care. Let's remember our agreements, and let's circle back to that right now. Let's focus in while so-and-so is talking. It can be a great tool to remind everybody what the expectations are and how we can grow together. So once you're in your circle, you get to ask a fun question. This opens everybody up and gets everybody going. So yes, indeed, here is the icebreaker question that you will have everyone think about and answer together. So when you're in your circle, you will have that talking piece, that ball or that little hedgehog, stuffed animal, whatever it is. And so, starting with yourself, you'll invite the kids to think about this. If you could only wear one type of shoe for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? One type of shoe, the rest of your life. What would it be and why? Give them a second to think about it. They'll probably start to stir a little bit and laugh and look around. And so invite them to pass that talking piece or that ball, or toss it around and give everybody a chance to answer the question. And make sure that everyone is listening and having some fun as you all start to warm up together. Here's 2 important teaching tips while you're in the circle and while you're working with the kids. over and over again, athletes have really learned from the past and in classrooms this year that the kids respond really well when you use their names. And you'll notice in both classrooms, especially at Mount Nittany, that the students typically have on a name tag. So don't hesitate to call the students by their names, to laugh with them, and to have a good time. It really helps them know that they're valued when you use their name. And the second thing, too, if it works for you and it works for your classroom, it can be really important to sit with the students at their level. If everyone's standing, stand with them. If everyone's sitting, sit with them. That helps to create the space, and it helps to keep the power dynamic even. So once you break the ice and you're all thinking about shoes and why in the world this makes a difference, then you'll start to transition to the next activity. So today, you and your kids, you're really going to focus in on how important it is to put yourself in another person's shoes, and how important it is to be willing to see that even though we may be different from others, or even though we may have different sorts of power, we don't have to treat others badly or make them feel like they're less. We all know that we're very different. So let's think about differences and similarities for a second and take a look at why that's important to think about, especially if we're going to be preventing bullying together. So we're going to transition then and get your students, tell them, all right, everybody, we're going to move around a little bit and we're going to have some fun with this next activity. It's called the Me and We activity. And this is a really fun activity. It was actually developed by Teaching Tolerance, which for you who are ed majors is a really great site. It includes lots of lesson plans that help kids to think about how understanding and empathy can be a really great tool to make connections. So, okay, everybody, here we go. We're going to do an activity to help us think about differences and similarities. You'll explain to everybody before they move, here's what's going to happen. I have 3 signs here, and these 3 signs I'm going to put in different parts of the classroom. The signs are like, neutral, and dislike. And so once you show the students the signs, you'll encourage them to take a look and to think about, for the next part of this activity, what you're going to do is you're going to say and name some items or some concepts, and you're going to invite them to move to an area in the classroom based on how they feel about that particular thing. And so here's just a tip or a couple tricks to keep in mind. If you are in a classroom where there's plenty of space, I would definitely encourage, even if you don't have time to put the signs up, I would encourage pointing to different corners of the classroom, and you'll say, okay, that will be the dislike corner, that will be the neutral corner, and that will be the like corner. And make it very clear what part of the classroom designates the area for each way to rank a certain thing. If by chance you notice that it might not be a good option for your classroom, maybe if someone in your classroom is a person who has a disability and they might be left out because they can't move around, another option you might consider is just to simply use your hands. You could do a thumbs up for like, thumbs down for dislike, a hand straight out for neutral. So be creative in your classroom, thinking about how you can designate where the spaces are that they can go to indicate if they like, dislike, or they're so-so about something. And so here's the deal. The list you have is in your lesson plan. You'll go one by one through the list and give your students an opportunity to move. So take a look at some examples. One of the examples you have, move to a space in the room based on if you like ice cream. If you like ice cream, if you dislike ice cream, or if it's neutral. And you'll go through the list. You'll see. Once everybody moves, have them take a breath and take a second and look around. And then you'll say, all right, here's the next one. Move to the next place based on this. Broccoli. Do you like, dislike, or neutral about broccoli? And so you'll go through one by one, leaving enough space and time in between for people to get set, to look around, and to move. One thing that you can think about is also to encourage your students at the beginning not to talk during the exercise, but to keep their eyes open and to look around and take a look at who shows up where based on what they like or dislike, and to get curious about that. And so after each of these concepts or items, and you've given everybody enough time to move and encourage them to look around, at the very end of it, and probably during all of it, you'll probably notice that there will be some laughter, there will be some remarks, and you'll actually be learning a lot together through the process. So once you've gone through the list, and everybody has determined their likes and dislikes and looked around to see who's with them in each category, encourage the young people to join you back in your circle so that you can talk about it, what you learned. Once you're all back in the circle together, you can then start to lead the me and we discussion questions. You'll see a whole list of questions in your lesson plan. And this is just a guide, but it really starts to move us into where we're trying to go with this. So the first question, just get your young people thinking. Did everyone in the class go to one sign for any topic? Did anybody go to just one sign for any topic? Might be interesting to see, especially for broccoli. Next question. Was there a time in the activity when you and one of your friends felt differently about an item that you named? Give the students a chance to laugh and to answer. And if you're noticing that some people are talking more or less than others, you can say, okay, I'd like to hear from 2 new people, just to sort of open the space and encourage others to talk. The next question, what were your reactions when you noticed there were people in different groups? What did you notice? Did you notice you were naturally judging others? Or maybe falling into an us versus them mentality? This would be really interesting to ask the kids, did anybody think about like, ew, gross, about other groups, or we're better than you? Those kinds of topics. Get them thinking about how were they judging others who were in different groups. Was that a natural tendency that they had? And then move into this key question. What kinds of things tend to divide us in school? If they need some examples, you can say things like maybe hobbies or where we live, things like that. And give them a chance to share what they know. It'll probably be pretty enlightening. After you've asked that, think about, just in general, what brings people together as friends? To going deeper, what kinds of behaviors are really important for people to stay friends with each other? Give them a chance to break those things down, because those things are really the building blocks of healthy relationships. Those things are the things that leave no place for bullying to happen. And at the end of all of that, the point and the hope is you'll explore with your students that, bottom line, we don't all have to like the same things to be friends, just like they'll probably see in the activity. And we also don't all have to be the same to treat each other with respect and care. But here's the deal, and you kind of get to level with them. We know, in theory, that we're supposed to celebrate people who are different, that we're supposed to be nice, that we're supposed to be accepting, but it doesn't always happen. patterns get in place where we naturally judge, where we naturally create an us versus them. And so we have the opportunity to change those patterns. And the next part then, you're really helping to take a look with the students and to talk about, look you guys, we're all different. We have likes, we have dislikes. And it's important that we, as different as we are, we take a moment to think about how we treat each other based on differences. And so there are really some key summary points that you can use to transition to move you along. I would definitely consider saying things like this, and some of these things are in your lesson plan for you. Look guys, as we can see and as we know, we're all different. If you want, have them put all of their shoes out in front of them. Look you guys, we're all different, just like the shoes that we wear. We're all different. And this is what we need to remember. Different doesn't mean bad. Different just means different. Different likes, dislikes, beliefs, personalities, and experience. And here's the deal, difference is something to value and to celebrate. It's not a reason to judge, to make fun of, or to bully others. Here's the truth. Bullying often happens because we target and judge people who are different than we are, especially before we get to know them or give them a chance. And ask the kids, does that sound familiar? Do we often bully others or target others because they're different than we are? Or does that make us maybe stay silent and not stand up for people? What we know is that bullying, no matter how it happens, it divides us, and it prevents us from connecting. It prevents all of us from connecting. And we all miss out on a lot when bullying is part of the story. So it's time then, in the lesson, once you talk about that, bullying divides us, it's real, and we target others who are different. So what we want to do is take a look at the realness of it and maybe see how we can get ahead of the patterns. You're going to move then to the next part of the lesson. The third part, it's an individual activity, and so you want to set it up and transition by helping the kids say something like this. Let's think about some of the ways that bullying because of difference really affects us and the diverse communities that we're a part of. We're a community here in our classroom. We're all different, and all of us are different from each other here in the school and in this bigger community. And so we want to be able to recognize differences, but also connect with each other instead of dividing from each other. Do we judge and divide first, or do we accept and connect first? Different things happen when we divide, and different things happen when we support and connect. So let's take a look at those things and see what happens when bullying is part of the story. So you'll tell your students, first of all, before you move, let them know that this is an individual activity, and it's going to give us all an opportunity to reflect on our own experiences when it comes to bullying. And it's a time right now for us to either look at our own experience or to put ourselves in the shoes of others, what they may have experienced when bullying was part of the story. And so tell your students we'll debrief at the end, but never will anyone be forced to share. So once you hand out the worksheets to every person, give them a chance to find their own space where they can write and reflect, and encourage them to make good choices who they choose to sit by. If you think that you're going to sit by a person who you may end up talking and getting distracted with, you might want to make a different choice and choose to sit at a different desk or by someone else. So once everybody is to their own workstations, you really want to give them a chance to reflect. So you want to create a quiet, reflective space to complete the worksheet, and you want to do it one side at a time. You want to lead them through and prompt them so that we can all do this together. So prompt students first to complete the first side, the part 1 that's called bullying and division. And so encourage your students to complete at least one column on that side, and if not all. And so you'll see on that side, it's encouraged them to write about a time that you either experienced bullying behaviors, others were mean to you or cruel to you for being different, or a time you acted out bullying behaviors. You were mean or cruel to someone else for being different. Or you witnessed bullying behaviors. You watched when someone was being mean or cruel to someone else for being different. Maybe you were a bystander, you were silent, and you chose not to take action and to let it happen. So write about those experiences, how it affected you, how it affected others, what it must have been like for them, and how that really affected everybody who was watching it or seeing it. Give the students about 5 minutes to take a look at that side of the sheet. Once they're done, encourage everyone to turn the sheet over and to look at side 2. For side 2, you're going to ask them to take 5 minutes and choose at least one column to write about your experiences of support and belonging. So we looked at what it's like when bullying is a part of the story. What if the opposite is true? What if acceptance and belonging are part of the story? So they'll look then to see, write about a time when they felt like a valued person, when they can remember they were helped to feel accepted and supported by others, even if they were different. And write about a time if maybe they were an aspiring ally. They were kind and supportive to another person instead of treating them poorly for being different. Or they could also choose inspiring ally. You maybe saw someone being kind and supportive to another person instead of treating them poorly for being different. Feel free to give your own examples if they need something to get them started. Give them 5 minutes to finish this second side. And if you notice that students are still writing and still needing maybe more than 5 minutes, give them that time, because it's important for them to really reflect on what they were feeling, what they noticed others were feeling, and to notice too, what was it like in the whole environment when people were supporting each other. Once everybody has a chance to consider what it was like when bullying was part of the story and what was true when the opposite was true, you'll be able to take some time as a class and as a group to really debrief and to bring it all home. So there are a couple options that you can think of and consider together. I would definitely, if your class is a class that it makes sense for, I would first consider maybe having them talk in pairs first before you come back to the large group. Some of you did this with the biopoem activity, and some classrooms did not. So if it makes sense, encourage your students after you're done to find a pair or a triad, and I want you guys to take some time to listen to each other. Share one example from side 1 with your partner, and then switch partners and listen in a respectful and caring way as they share. And then you want to have them switch again and have them share maybe one example from side 2, and then listen to their partner and give them a chance to share one of their examples as well. And as they're sharing, really think about what effect did these examples have on your partner. What was it like for them? Did they experience guilt? Did they experience sadness? What was that like? Once you give them a chance to listen about what it was like when bullying was part of the story and when support was part of the story, bring everyone back together as a large group. And here's the deal. If you notice that the pair share is not something that's good for your group, you can just start right away with the large group option. Bring everybody back together and ask everyone in a group as the whole group for examples from side 1. Someone please, share with me an example of something that you experienced, acted out, or witnessed when it comes to bullying. And we're all human, we've all experienced it. So let's listen with respect and care as our classmates are talking. You'll hear things that are really quite touching and moving and serious, and you'll hear things that might be kind of sad for students too. So make sure that you're listening and creating a space that's safe, and it's a brave space. It won't necessarily be a confidential space, but it's a place where people can listen to each other's stories and really start to think about how this whole big reality of bullying affects us all. So once you've heard some examples, then you want to ask the most important questions. Have the kids think about what happens when bullying is part of the story. And really get them to think about, how did that situation make you feel? How did it affect others? How did it affect the space or the environment? Were you afraid to be yourself? Were you afraid to make connections with others? What was that like? And you'll notice, bottom line, that when bullying is part of the story, we are divided. We're not able to be our best selves, and we're kind of tentative and hesitant in the spaces where we are. We're not free to be who we are. And then, of course, the opposite of that. What happens when acceptance is part of the story? It can be very moving to remember what it felt like to feel supported in a situation, especially if you were the person who was different or new, or you know of a person who was targeted because they spoke a different language, or people were making fun of them because of their race. What was it like when we saw others supporting others? When we saw others lifting each other up? It really makes a huge difference. Ask your students what they notice and help them to bring it all home and see how important it is to support each other. Bullying affects all of us in so many ways. It hurts and it causes a lot of deep hurt, but it doesn't have to define us. It doesn't have to divide us, and it doesn't have to stop us. So at the end of your time together, as you're sharing stories, as you're listening, remember that bullying is a behavior. It's not an identity. We're not just bullying and bullied, we're humans. And when we all behave in unkind ways once in a while, but we also have the potential to be great friends and people of great courage too. And it really takes a lot of courage to connect, especially when we're different. And it really takes a lot of courage to be our best selves and help each other be their best selves too. Remember, you're helping them all really think about the truth that we all know what it feels like to hurt inside, or to feel guilty for causing hurt. But hopefully we all know how good it can feel too when we're kind to each other and have the courage to put ourselves in another's shoes, to respond with respect and care, and to help each other out. As we seek to understand, we're understood. And as we listen and make connections, we don't have to do hard things alone. So at the end of this lesson, I just want to share a couple teaching tips with you as you bring together the third part of the lesson. Make sure that before you hand out the worksheets and before you give them any actual things to do, make sure that you explain the instructions first. That helps everybody know what's expected and what's happening. Please feel free at any time to share your own examples, whether you were a person who did the bullying. That's especially an important one. Maybe if you witnessed or if it happened to you and how that affected you, and how you know how differently it feels, and how much better it is to support others and not tear them down. Make sure that too, while you have people doing the worksheets, that you're giving time warnings. And if you need to bring everybody back together, try to remember using some of those techniques that we've used in the past. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. Just different things like that to bring everybody back together. And one really important thing when you're doing the Your Story, Our Story activity, make sure that you're encouraging your students to focus on feelings and observations, not on calling out particular people or details. Some people will potentially like name a person who did that to them or start to get into those kinds of things like that. That would be a great time to say, all right, you guys, let's focus on what it was like and maybe less on the details or the people, just to bring it back and to help keep it focused. It can be really easy once kids start sharing and everybody's wanting to start to talk, and the reality is that you won't have enough time. So something really helpful that you can do is to just name, all right, everybody, let's hear 3 examples. Give a clear number, and that makes it, like people get a chance to share, but it also kind of creates some limits so you don't run out of time. And one thing for you to know and remember as the athletes, as you all are kind of talking about some of the real stories of bullying and how it has affected people and how they've seen it, remember that bullying, it's a hard topic, and most likely it's possible that a person who's experienced bullying is sitting across from the circle from someone who's done the bullying behavior. So encourage students to take care of themselves, respect each other, use the agreements, return to them if you need to. Remember, you're creating a brave space. It's not necessarily a confidential space. And just in general, and just as a reminder, please, if at any point you hear of anything that sounds concerning, someone, a young person is talking about they're being bullied, they're being hurt, something like that, make sure that you check in either with the teacher or with myself or someone from the resource center if you hear something concerning. We're all mandated reporters, and we're all people who want kids to be safe. So if you hear something, check in with the teacher, check in with us, and we'll make sure that everybody is okay as we work to be supportive people and as we help kids consider how they can prevent bullying and how they can put themselves in one another's shoes, how they can respond to each other with respect and care, how they can all help to make a difference together. To bring it all home, you'll then have everybody do the last and final part of the lesson together, and that's the closing huddle. And this one's kind of fun because it's an activity called Linked. It's a favorite one that the young people like to do together. Basically, you're going to point out and bring it all home that while some things like bullying may divide us and keep us from being our best selves, other things can unite us when we take time to connect, especially when we take time to have the courage to connect with others who are different than we are. It can go a long way and make a big difference. So connecting and supporting each other, especially when we're different, makes all the difference in the world. So this activity, to bring it all home, it's all about how we can practice connecting. And so what you want to do, it's simple. Explain to everyone, starting with you, you're going to move to the left. And one by one, you're going to invite the students to find something in common with the person next to them. So I would turn to the left. And once you find something in common with that person, you link arms, and then they'll turn to the next person, find something in common, and link arms. And you'll do this all the way around the circle. So for example, you might find out that the person next to you, you both like vanilla ice cream. You'll link arms with them, and it'll go around the circle until it gets back to you. And it can be simple things like having a dog, or of course cheering for Penn State, which is a pretty good and classic one. So once they get back all the way around to you, have everyone take a look. And so you can see that even though we're all linked with the person beside us, we're also all linked. And so the point is that we're all valuable and we're all different. And differences don't have to be bad or less. It's important that we learn how to live with each other through our differences and not use our differences to divide us or change who we are, or worse, as a reason to use our power to hurt or exclude others. It's important we practice getting to know each other for all the unique and valuable things that make us who we are. Together, we're better. When we're linked, we're better. This is our story, and we all play a valuable part. Connected, we are one team, and we support each other. You can bring everybody in and do the final huddle. Hands in, everybody. We are one team. We support each other. And of course, you can always do roar on 3. 1, 2, 3, roar. That's the end of lesson 3. Remember, when we practice empathy, we can get ahead of the patterns that lead to bullying. We can make connections, we can be our best selves, and we can help to create safe and respectful environments where bullying has no place. Some important details, especially if this is your first time. Remember that the lesson is from 8:20 to 9 in the classrooms. We'll meet at 8 o'clock at Park Forest. We'll meet in the cafeteria. At Mount Nittany, we'll meet in the auditorium. Cushion some time. Traffic's usually slow. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to check in with everyone. And I'm really excited to make this a really fun lesson. Let's practice some empathy. We'll practice helping the young people connect with each other and to prevent bullying. One final thing, don't forget about social media. No faces of kids, but otherwise, please share away. Let everybody know that you are taking action to help local middle schools prevent bullying. Thank you so much for being a part. Check out the CCWRC pages for highlights for after the lessons. Thanks for being a part of PSATA. Hopefully this review will be of use to you. Good luck in the classrooms. We'll have everything ready for you. Thanks for preventing bullying. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and stories. And let's go get them.